Hello everybody, and welcome back. I'm really excited to be bringing you this video today. I'm sorry it took me a little bit longer to upload it than I would have liked, but I wanted to make sure that it was right before I got it on YouTube, and I hope you enjoy the results. For today's video, I'm going to be doing a review and an overview of the NSStick. Now, you might have heard of this before, or you came across this video totally on accident, or you just had seen another one of my videos and wanted to check this one out, but I hope you're entertained. This is an instrument that is not exceptionally popular. You've probably not heard of it, and if you have, you were probably trying to scour YouTube for all the information on it that you can, and I really hope that I can do a good service to this instrument and tell you all the things that I think are great about it, some of the things that I don't necessarily love about it, and just overall my impressions and experiences of playing the NSStick for about 5 years now. So hopefully not to completely bore you, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background into how I became interested in this instrument in the first place, how I found it, and how I came to want to play it. So basically, I began playing bass and guitar in early high school, just mostly teaching myself and trying to figure out what I enjoyed, and mostly playing my own songs, but figuring out what I enjoyed playing too. And both my parents are really, they're really involved with music as well, and so I had a good list of artists to build off of, and one of my favorite artists is Peter Gabriel, and I know a lot of people know him from the song In Your Eyes or Sledgehammer, but he has so many more, and it's just really he's a really eclectic musician, and I was just always drawn to him. And his bass player, Tony Levin, has been a bit of a shapeshifter for his whole career, and he has a lot of different techniques and styles, and he plays different types of basses, and sometimes he plays with these sticks attached to his fingers, and it just sounds so cool. But basically I found out about the NSStick from searching Tony Levin videos on YouTube, and one day while I was doing that, I came across a video of Tony playing what was called the Chapman stick. It's something that totally blew my mind at the time. I had never seen anything like it. The Chapman stick is a 10-string, typically, fretboard tapping instrument, which can do a lot of the same things sonically as a bass, but can also, with the tapping element and the extra melody strings and the different tunings that you can use with it, you can arrange all sorts of different sounds and get all sorts of different funky patterns out of it. And it really just blew my mind to see that such a unique instrument was available. From there, I went and researched the Stick's website, where I came across the different instruments that the creator Emmett Chapman has made over his time doing this, and this dude is clearly a genius. And so he has things called the railboard, he has an alto stick, he has a grand stick, but the thing that really caught my eye on the website was the NSStick. The NSStick is a co-creation between Emmett Chapman and a man named Ned Steinberger, who was a bass innovator in his own right. He had his own line of basses that introduced some really cool things back in the day, and the NSStick is just the result of them working together. And the reason the NSStick really seemed appealing to me was because, opposed to the other stick instruments, the NS seemed to be the most analogous to a traditional bass and maybe even a baritone guitar, while still being able to have the tapping capabilities of the other stick fretboards, making it, to my mind, one of the most capable instruments I'd ever seen. And the opportunities to create new and interesting music with it just seemed off the charts. So I was really excited, decided to save up, and then eventually ordered my own. As for the ordering process, it was really simple. I will say that they give you a lot of different options. You can just go to the Stick's website to see all the different choices that you have, but basically you can choose from different inlays, different types of wood, different types of paint, and different tunings. And through the whole process, Stick communicated me back and forth through email about what I wanted, how I wanted things, and It took about 2 months for them to make my stick, but it was really, really cool to see updates on it as they went, and 2 months to get a completely custom made brand new instrument is really not bad in my opinion. And the second I picked it up for the first time, it was very clear the craftsmanship that went into it was top notch. So that's more than enough background. Hopefully, let's look at the instrument itself. So as you can see, it is beautiful up close. I'll just show you the face here. As you can see down here, it's got 4 active EMG pickups. And the way this works is that, as you can see, there are 8 strings, basically 2 sets of 4, and each pickup is designed for each set of 4. So you can see down here, you've got switches here. This is the treble switch, which you can switch between the front and the back and both pickups, as you can also do with the bass here. And this third switch is actually really interesting. This is a stereo mono switch. So using this instrument, if it's in mono, you can plug it into 1 amp and you will get all 8 strings of sound. And what's really cool is if you switch to stereo, you can get it's a different type of cable. It's called a TRS cable, I believe. And you can use that cable to route 1 set of 4 strings to a bass amp, say, and then the other 4 to a guitar amp, which is usually what I do. And this allows me to have a fully customized bass sound as I would like it to come out of a bass amp, and then you can have the guitar side of the stick sound, you know, as clean or distorted as you want based on the guitar amp, which I really like being able to have that versatility. The only downside to this, of course, is, you know, if you're playing a live show or anything, you're going to have to be carrying more amps for 1 instrument and checking settings on 2 amps. So just something to be aware of, but the results are a really cool mixed blend of bass and guitar sounds coming from 1 instrument. Speaking of how the NSStick sounds, it definitely does have a unique sound to it. Those EMG pickups are monsters. I love the way that they sound on the bass end. You can really get just a really full kind of, I don't know if harsh is the right word, just a, you know, really tough sounding bass that really, really sounds good, whether you're tapping, slapping, or just picking like a regular with your fingers or with a guitar pick. The guitar side of the stick, it definitely still does sound like it's not quite a guitar. It's definitely has its own sound to it. So once you can get used to it, and once you dial in the settings that you like most on it, you'll be really happy with how it sounds. Just don't expect it to sound like a regular guitar. It totally does sound like more of a bass that's trying to be a guitar. And that's great in a lot of aspects because it's really different and you can get some really cool sounds with it, but just something to be aware of. Moving back to the actual structure of the instrument, I want to talk about the bridge. As you can see, it's pretty unique looking. It's what they call a side saddle bridge. And the way it works is they've got these height adjustment screws where each string notches in at the top and it directs it back towards this little clamp where you can put in the nut of each string, and you have the tuning dials at the very bottom so you can adjust the tightness or looseness of the string to tune it or to remove the strings and change them out. It's really easy. I really like this system because you can adjust the height of each little adjustment screw if you want to down here, if you've got any buzzing or you want to raise the action up for any reason. At the very top, you also have the same type of adjustment screws, which you just get a little Allen key and you adjust those as well if you have any buzzing or anything. And then at the very top of the instrument in the back, you've got the basically they're just more adjustment screws that hold each string in place. So you just loosen them up, pull it out, put a new string in, notch it down here at the bottom, and then tighten that up and you're all set. And it's really easy to change out, to clean the instrument. So I really like this design, and it generally seems to hold tune very well. So you don't have to be tuning it too often if you're playing it regularly. The only negatives of this system, in my opinion, would be depending on the type of strings that you buy, some of these nuts at the end might be a little bit bigger than others. So tapping them into the clamp down here, for example, on the B string, with these strings that I bought for them, they're a little bit too big, so I had to tap it down a little bit. Other than that, again, with the B string specifically, you really have to bring the tuner dial all the way down to the bottom before you can get it off and change it out, because it's kind of tough to get the appropriate tightness of the B string, I found specifically. The other negative would be up at the back. You're just going to want to have some pretty good little wire cutters to be able to snip these strings. Really not too bad once you get used to it, but you can see here there's a couple places I've scratched it when I was using pliers that were too big, and I didn't have the right ones at the time when I was changing out the strings. So really not too big of an issue. You can also get into a little bit of trouble if you're adjusting the height adjustment screws on the neck or the bridge too often. Really, in general, you're going to want to adjust the truss rod back here on the back. If the instrument is bowing at all, you want it to be pretty flat. But in general, Stick wants you to play the NSStick as low of action as you possibly can. This really facilitates the tapping aspect of the instrument. So just be aware that if you're strumming really hard or playing hard, you're going to get some buzzing if you're in that low action. And if you want to change that, you have the ability to do so, but it might restrict the tapping speed or how it feels. So in general, only adjust the truss rod on the back of the neck if you need to adjust the action, or if you hear any buzzing, or if the neck is bowing, because otherwise, and I learned this the hard way, is that if you adjust the string height screws at the top of the neck or at the bridge, you might wind up chasing a problem that could have been fixed with just the truss rod first. All right, last couple of structural things I wanted to talk about. As you can see, it's just got a nice little rod back here, and then a screw attachment here for your guitar strap. And then down at the bottom, it's got a little knee rest if you want to play sitting down. But in my experience, I will say this is a much easier instrument to play and, most importantly, tap while you're standing up. So you might not use that knee rest too often. It is a pretty heavy instrument over time, heavier than say your standard bass or guitar, definitely. So you might have a little bit of fatigue there. Also, with the neck being as wide as it is, you might have, I know I did, I wound up having a little bit of wrist cramping, wrist pain type of issues from playing too much. So I kind of had to take a break a little bit. So just be aware of that. Maybe do some little hand stretches or wrist stretches before you play every time. That might help. You might see down here that I have, it's pretty neat. It's got a MIDI connection set up for a MIDI synth. I might talk about that in a later video, but that's another feature that you can get set up from Stick when you order. So another pretty cool thing if that's what you're interested in. And last but not least, if you look at the top of the neck up here, you can see what Stick calls a retractable dampener. And so what this does is you can slide it back if you are just playing open strings or just playing bass or guitar like you'd regularly want to. And then when you're tapping, you can engage it up. It's a really simple spring action little notch that holds it in place and then brings it up. So when it's up, it dampens the open strings, which is just a lifesaver when it comes to tapping, because that way it leaves you a lot of room to be able to tap and bounce around without having open strings causing all sorts of unwanted resonances while you're playing. So really cool, really innovative feature that I really like. All right, so now I would like to more talk about the function of the instrument itself and give you a couple examples of how you can play it. So if you go to the Stick website, you can check out all these different tunings that you can set your NSStick to, and you really have a lot of different options. I'll just tell you about the one I've used the whole time since I've had this instrument, so that's where my experience lies. But I have it tuned in the 8-string guitar intervals tuning, which goes from B to E to A to D to G to C to E to A. And the way that works is that those last what they call it, a major third interval between the second and third strings that allows you to do a lot of different guitar chord shapes, which, like I said, this doesn't necessarily sound like a guitar, but being able to play full guitar chords that are like low and gritty and this unique sound that the NSStick gives off, it's really cool to be able to do guitar chords. And then, of course, as a bass, this thing is great. With the low action, it's really fun to play whatever style you want to. Like I said, the action is really low, so maybe it's not any style you want to because you're going to have to be a little less aggressive with whatever you're trying to do. You can still get aggressive tones and build aggressive songs with it. I'm just saying you do need to play this a little bit softer, or you need to bring the action up, which once you're doing that, you basically just have an 8-string bass. So you want to keep the action low so you can tap well on this. Anyway, this thing is just so much fun to play as a bass. I usually play fingerstyle, but it also sounds great tonally with a pick. I just love the way that it sounds, and it just has a really, really powerful sound to it. And with the low action, it's really, your fingers just glide across it. It's really fun to play. And that's just once you get used to the width of the neck and the string spacing and just getting used to playing everything a little bit lighter. It's just really, really fun to play. Of course, with that low action, it's a little bit harder to slap and pluck, but you can still do it. Of course, you just have to play it a little bit softer than you would on any other bass, just with your slapping and your plucking. Again, it sounds great. You can totally do it, but you just have to kind of change your technique a little bit, which is something I had to do. As for the different levels of functional playability that the NSStick has, you might find yourself, I know I find myself writing a ton of songs that feature, for example, fingerstyle bass, strumming chords, and tapping all in the same song. So that's generally why I don't use a pick, is so I'll still be able to tap if I want to. But if you're just keeping the song to, bass notes and guitar chords, you can totally use a pick for this instrument. But it's really, really just so cool that you can do all three things in one song so seamlessly. I just typically strum with my fingernails. You get used to figuring out how to do that effectively and making it sound good. And then again, you can still throw in finger picking or slapping and plucking. And it just gives you so many different layers that the possibilities are really endless. And I just think it is so unique to have an instrument this versatile where it's actually viable to do such seamless switches between technique within one song. It just really allows the songwriter a lot of freedom. As for tapping, that's, in my opinion, the most intricate, difficult thing to learn about this instrument. Really learning how to master it with playing bass on your left hand and tapping on your right, or if you're vice versa, if you're left-handed. But it's really cool once you get the hang of it. There are so many players that I'm sure are much more skilled than me at it, but I love being able to do it. It's something that I love to write songs with, because you can really get some interesting rhythmic patterns and chordal sounds and just melodies that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And it's just so cool to think that the possibilities could be endless on an instrument like this, based on your willingness to practice and learn. And it's just really a rewarding instrument, in my opinion. All right, so just to wrap this video up, I wanted to finish by demonstrating a couple of little songs and riffs that I've written on the NSStick, so you can get a better idea of the functionality and the possibilities of playing the NSStick. Okay, so this second example I wanted to show, this one has a little bit more finger style to it. It's got just some slapping, and then it has some chords going on. So that again will hopefully show you a little bit of the versatility of this instrument. All right, so with those two examples in there, I think I've covered basically everything that I wanted to about the NSStick. Just to sum up, it's a beautiful, well-crafted, and unique instrument that if you take the time to learn its intricacies, you will be ultimately rewarded with an instrument that presents a lot of different possibilities and is just really fun to play. It is a little quirky, so it might not be for everybody, but regardless, I hope that you found this video to be enjoyable and informative. And who knows, it might even inspire you to go check out other different unconventional instruments that are out there. As always, thank you so much for watching this and any of my other videos. I really appreciate the feedback, the support. I hope that you enjoy the content. And if you do, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I've got some really exciting things planned for the near future, so please stay tuned and hit that bell icon so you'll be notified next time I drop a video. Thank you.